So, I've been pretty busy the last few weeks putting together my big video project for June, but with Fire Emblem 3 Hopes coming out just about a month from now, and with the fresh round of hype and discourse that's already bringing, I figured now was as good a time as any to revisit and finally complete my 3 Houses minimum runs 100% attempt. I did a tier list in 3 videos on this a while back, but back then I was speaking from my experiences in having done 100% in more than the minimum 29 runs. And while I'd been working steadily since then on actually accomplishing that goal, I was on and off 3 Houses for months because, frankly, I have less tedious things to do in my free time. But here we are. What you're watching is from the last chapter of my 29th and final run for 100%. Funny story though, the last run was supposed to be Silver Snow, but as you can see, it turned out to be Crimson Flower, and there's a really dumb reason for that. As much as I love to rag on Fire Emblem self-inserts, it's a little funny that I've been neglecting the exploit that allows you to buy S ranks with Renown even if you haven't unlocked them normally. And come the last few runs, I had to rush to grind up some of the guys with male byleths so his female counterpart could buy their S rank since there's way more than 29 of those. Unfortunately, Hubert was one of those guys, and obviously you can only build his support in Crimson Flower, so here we are. I love you, Hubert, but I'm not self-insert in love with you. At this point, I'm finished with all these characters' classes and skills, so now I'm just out to finish the run with their best class options out of what they've been working on. The biggest thing you're missing out on here as a result of the route change is Mage Seteth, who of course had to be moved to an earlier run. He's nothing special, but he's better than Dark Flyer Petra here, who's arguably the worst female mage in the game. That still puts her ahead of like half a dozen male mages, but still. Aside from her, we've got Wyvern Lord Dorothea and Constance, not because they needed to grind flying, but because in the same runs I do the heavy armor classes, and they both needed to grind that out. Ditto Bow Knight Linhardt, finishing up with some weapon types you'd never normally use on him. The only somewhat ordinary character in class combo here is Mortal Savant Ferdinand, because as it happened, he got to do his sword run last and so got to be my last dancer. I do, however, want to give a little shout out to Mortal Savant in these runs, where it's a pretty useful class for characters to pivot to magic late game. When you have to grind out all these classes and skills, magic is less of a hassle than physical weapons since you don't have to repair anything every few battles, so that's nice. Good job, Mortal Savant. There's a playstyle where you're actually good for something. If only I could say the same for my favorite underpowered master class, because Holy Knight still sucks. Shame, really. But I feel like bragging a bit now, so here I am showing off a fully maxed out Yuritsa, because it's Crimson Flowers, so I can. If you watch those tier list videos, you'll know that Yuritsa is far and away the biggest obstacle to 3 Houses 100%. So it's incredibly cathartic to scroll through his journal entry and see all of his classes there and all of his skills available up to S+. This is why I do 100%. Just look at that. This is also, by the way, what 3 Houses 100% means in a nutshell, having all characters maxed out like this. I mean, there's also the support log and the Goddess Tower events and having one of every battalion in your guild at max level, but the journal's got all the big stuff. And if you're wondering how long all this took, like I said, I've been working on this on and off for 7 or 8 months in real time. In-game time, however, came to just under 350 hours. That's absolutely ridiculous by most metrics, but bear in mind that the first time I did this, it took about 700 hours, so I can confidently say I've cut my time in half. Thinking about it, it's theoretically possible to do this in under 300 hours if you average about 10 hours a run, which wouldn't be easy by any means, but is at least plausible if you have a very good handle on how much of the game you can skip. During the last 15 or so runs here, I was skipping almost everything in Part 2, and only slowing down if I had to work on some late joiners like Seteth or Gilbert or, of course, Yuritsa. And the further you get in, the more freedom you have to skip most of the monastery content. The final route breakdown was 10 Azure Moon, 9 Verdant Wind, and 5 for each of the Eagles routes. Would have been 6 Silver Snow and 4 Crimson Flower, but Hubert just wasn't getting gay enough for male Byleth. I don't blame him. Anyway, that's gonna do it for my 100% run. Thanks for watching, and while I don't seriously expect anyone else to ever attempt anything like this, I always enjoy getting to talk about my process and maybe give some other people ideas about self-imposed challenges. I will undoubtedly be back in a couple of weeks with some 3 Hopes pre-release hype, or as much of it as I can muster for a Warrior spin-off. Au revoir.